M.DAMALIE here, and welcome to my channel. In the next 15 minutes we're going to dive deep into the world of Waterfall Project Management. Whether you are new to the concept or looking to refresh your knowledge, this video has got you covered. So let's not waste any time and start learning everything you need to know about Waterfall Project Management. And if you find this informative, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Alright folks, let's dive into Waterfall. Imagine you have a big project like building a tree house. The Waterfall model is like following a step-by-step recipe to make sure everything goes smoothly. So in order for us to build this tree house, first we will start by planning. You plan everything carefully, you decide how big the tree house will be, what it will look like, and what materials you need. And then after we're done planning, we will move on to the design stage. You draw a detailed picture or a blueprint of your tree house. It's like making a map of how it should be built. And right after designing, we will start building. Now it's time to build. You follow your blueprint and put all the pieces together, like building the walls, adding a roof, making sure it's safe. And then once we're done building, we will go ahead and start testing. You check to make sure everything works as it should. Is the tree house steady? Does the door open and close properly? This step is like testing if your project is good to go. Then once we're done testing, then we are in the finishing phase. You make sure everything is right. You can paint and decorate your tree house to make it look nice. And finally, you get to enjoy your treehouse and have fun in it. So the waterfall model is like doing things in a strict order, one step at a time, and you can go back to the previous step once you have moved on. It's a great way when you know exactly what you want at the start, but it might not be a best choice if you want to change. The waterfall model is a traditional and a sequential approach to project management and software development. It's characterized by a linear and a structured progression of phases, with each phase building upon the result of the previous one. The waterfall model is often used for projects where the requirements are well defined and stable. Here is an overview of the key phases and characteristics of the waterfall model. Requirement gathering. This phase is all about understanding what the project aims to achieve. Project stakeholders, including clients, end users, and the development team collaborate together and document detailed requirements. Requirement can include functional requirements, that is what the system should do, and non-functional requirements, that is how it should perform, security, scalability, etc. At the end of this phase, you should have a clear and a comprehensive document that outlines what needs to be built. Now, let's move on to the system design. Once the requirements are gathered, the project team creates a detailed plan for how the system will be structured and built. This includes defining the system's architecture, components, and data flow. Architecture and design create diagram, flowchart, and technical specification that serve as a blueprint for development. Now, let's move on to the implementation of the coding. In this phase, developers start writing the actual code based on the design specifications. They follow the plan created in the design phases to build the software or the product. This is where the project begins to take shape and the code is written in accordance with the documented requirement and design. Now, let's move on to the testing phase. After the coding phase, thorough testing is performed to ensure that the software functions correctly and meets the requirement. Various types of testing are conducted, including unit testing, that is testing individual components or models, integration testing, that is testing how different components work together, then system testing, ensuring that the entire system functions as expected, and then we'll go to the user acceptance testing, letting end users test the system to ensure it meets their needs. Any defects or issues found during testing are documented and addressed by the development team. Then after this phase, we will move on to the deployment phase. And once all the product passes all testing phases, is considered ready for release. It is deployed to the production environment. Deployment involves installing the software on servers, configuring it for the actual use, and making it available to the end users. After the deployment, the project transitions into a maintenance phase, and this phase involves monitoring the system for any issues or bugs that may arise in the production environment. It also includes providing support to end users, addressing questions or problems, and releasing updates or patches as necessary to maintain the system's functionality and security. Let's move on to some key characteristics of waterfall model. It's a sequential and linear. Each phase in the waterfall model must be completed before moving on to the next. This sequential approach ensures that one phase output serves as the input for the subsequent phases. Another characteristic is it's well defined. That requirement, the waterfall model assumes that the project requirements are stable and well understood from the beginning. Changes to requirement can be challenging and costly to implement once the project is underway. Another characteristic is minimal customer involvement. Customer or stakeholder involvement is typically concentrated at the beginning and the end of the project. There is limited interaction during the development phases, and it's also limited flexibility. The waterfall model is not well suited for projects where requirements are likely to change frequently. It can be rigid and less adaptable to evolving needs. And then another characteristic is it's a high documentation. Each phase produces extensive documentation, including requirement, document, design specification, test plans, and more. This documentation is crucial for tracking progress and ensuring quality. Long delivery time. Waterfall projects can take a long time to deliver a final product since each phase must be completed before moving to the next stage. What are some strengths of the waterfall approach? Some of the strengths is clear project phases. The waterfall project follows a structured and well-defined sequence of phases. This clarity helps ensure that each phase is completed thoroughly before moving on to the next, reducing the risk of overlooking important tasks. It also details documentation. Waterfall projects generate extensive documentation at each stage, including requirement, design specification, and test plans. This documentation serves as a comprehensive record of the project's progress and aid in quality control. Predictability timeline is another strength because the waterfall model is linear and sequential. It often results in more predictable project timeline, and stakeholders can have a good idea of when the project will be completed from the start. And it's also suitable for stable requirements. Waterfall is well suited for projects with stable and well understood requirements when the project goals and scope are unlikely to change significantly. And a waterfall can be effective approach in that sense. And then also another strength will be quality assurance. Rigorous testing is a fundamental part of the waterfall model. This helps ensure that the final product meets the specific requirement and is of high quality. Also appropriate for safety critical system. In domains where safety is paramount, such as aerospace, medical devices, the waterfall model emphasizes on thorough planning and testing and is advantageous in these domains. Minimal customer involvement during development. Some of the projects benefit from limited customer involvement during the development phase. The waterfall model allows clients to provide input at the beginning and receive a finished product at the end, which can be preferred in certain situations. It's also well suited for small teams. The waterfall can work well for small, tight-knit teams that are experienced in the chosen technical and have a deep understanding of the project. So what are some of the weaknesses or the deficiencies in this waterfall approach? Inflexibility to change. One of the most significant drawbacks of the waterfall model is its resistance to changes in project requirements. Once a phase is completed and the project moves to the next phase, it can be difficult and costly to make changes. This is problematic in dynamic and evolving project environment. Another drawback is late product validation. Stakeholders typically don't see a working product until late in the project's lifecycle, often not until the testing phase. This can lead to misunderstanding or dissatisfactions if the final product doesn't meet expectations. Another drawback is long delivery times. The waterfall project tend to have longer delivery times because each phase must be completed before moving to the next. This can be disadvantage in industry or market where a rapid product delivery is crucial. High risk in uncertainty environment. In situations where the project requirements are not well understood or are likely to change, the waterfall model can be risky. It may result in a product that doesn't align with changing business needs or user expectation. Another drawback is limited customer involvement. Customers or end users are typically involved at the beginning and end of the project, but they have limited interactions during the development phase. This can lead to a lack of feedback and potential mismatch between what was built and what was actually needed. Another drawback that I would also like to mention is costly error discovery. Errors or issues in the project are often discovered late in the life cycle during testing. Fixing the issue at this stage can be expensive and time consuming, especially if they require significant changes to the design or code. Lack of early prototyping is another drawback. The waterfall project can typically include early prototypes or versions of the product that stakeholders can interact with. This contrasts with the agile methodologies, which often include iterative prototyping and user feedback. Also, it's a complex integration. Integrating testing, which occurs late in the process, can reveal unexpected issues when different components are combined. Identifying and resolving these integration problems can be challenging. And also limited adaptation to market changes. In industries with rapid changing markets or technologies, the waterfall approach may result in product that becomes obsolete by the time it's delivered. Also, resource allocation challenges. Because the resources are allocated to each phase in advance, it can be really challenging when using this waterfall approach. So, when to use the waterfall approach. The waterfall model is best suited for projects with specific characteristics and requirements. Here are situations when it's appropriate to use the waterfall model. Well-defined and stable requirement. When project requirements are well understood and clearly defined and not likely to change significantly throughout the project, the waterfall model can work effectively. Another way that when to use the waterfall model is predictable environment. The waterfall model is suitable for projects in stable and predictable environment where external factors are unlikely to impact the project scope or requirements. Small to medium-sized project. It can be well suited for smaller to medium-sized project where the scope is manageable and there is no need for frequent changes or iteration. Another way where we can use the waterfall approach is safety and critical system. In industries such as aerospace, medical devices, nuclear power, where safety and regulatory compliance are paramount. That's it, folks. If you find this information very useful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.